Delegate Cardozo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for the patron.
So you may state it.
Delegate, what is the definition of an assault firearm that you're attempting to ban?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the delegate that the definition is in the bill, but and the clerk can report it. But if you look there, it says it's a semi-automatic centerfire rifle that expels a single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material with a fixed magazine capacity in excess of 12 rounds. A semi-automatic centerfire rifle that expels single or multiple projectiles by action of an explosion of a combustible material that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine has one of the following characteristics: a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the rifle. It goes on for a while. So if the clerk, Mr. Chair, I'd say that we can, the bill has it pretty clearly in the text.
Follow-up question.
Delegate Cardozo.
Actually, in your definition, you left out pistol, which, and it says actually 20 rounds of ammunition. And I would like to point to the fact that the Ruger 5.7, a regular, not weapon of war, handgun, the FN 5.7, the PSA 5.7, all of these come standard, not extended, normal out of the box with 20 rounds. These are regular pistols that someone would carry to defend themselves. So my question is, what would your bill do to protect people who have bought this to defend themselves, who carry this every day, from becoming felons because they own this weapon?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the delegate that if the delegate has suggestions on how we can make the proposed ban on the sale of assault weapons more effective, I would be happy to entertain them. We definitely believe that if you can't effectively stop a threat with a handful of rounds, you ought probably not be defending yourself with that firearm.
Go ahead and ask your follow-up question.
Mr. Speaker, my follow-up is that you said that someone should only be able to only need a handful of rounds to defend themselves. What if this person isn't the best shot in the world? What if this person is scared, they're being attacked, they're being chased, or they're elderly? Should they not have the best tool in their hand to defend themselves from someone who is attacking them? Why should we limit them to only a handful of rounds and make them a victim? Why shouldn't they have the best tools?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the delegate that I wonder if the delegate has seen what happens with a round that continues going, that hits an innocent bystander. The purpose of this bill is to keep our streets safe. Our children, our families, they aren't the enemy. The safest thing we can do for our communities to ensure those weapons, so similar to those that I carried overseas, aren't for sale here in our Commonwealth, and extended magazines that vastly increase the scale of death and mass shootings are no longer in possession of people here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Munden King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill, thank you for bringing this forward, for being brave enough to bring this forward in this climate. You know, tonight's committee, when I look up and I see the name public safety, it's almost laughable. This has been anything but public safety. As a matter of fact, we've shot down almost every single measure to actually help anyone or keep them safe. So I think I know the direction that this is going. So I just want to say, we failed so many people tonight. Babies, domestic violence survivors, Walmart mass shooting survivors, those with mental health problems, even communities who want to institute buyback programs. We failed them too. As a matter of fact, we probably can't, though there are those of us here who can't name the names that Delegate Hayes just spoke, but we can rattle off every single weapon that causes damage to people. And you know what that says to me? We don't hold people sacred. What we've shown tonight is the only thing this committee holds sacred is the power of the gun lobby. So thank you for being
All right.
brave enough to stand.
Thank you, Delegate King.
Thank you.
So, there'll be order in the committee room. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I've been pretty quiet tonight, but I will say something with respect to this. I too went overseas. I too certainly am very aware of what different weapon systems can do. My particular job in the military was as a Special Forces weapons sergeant. I'd go so far as to say that there's very, very few military occupational skills within the military that probably come into a contact with a variety of weapon systems as a Special Forces weapons sergeant, as you might imagine, because of the requirements of our job. What I find interesting is that every time that we talk about this issue, it's this idea that if we put the word assault next to the rifle, all of a sudden, that's supposed to make it something different. And sure, it may be different with respect to the ergonomics, it may be different with respect to how you hold it, but a weapon is not capable of engaging in assault. People do that. And I find it interesting at times, because I also sit on the Courts of Justice Committee. The number of bills I see from our colleagues which are regularly attempting to either lessen the amount of time someone that commits a violent act spends in jail, or is suggesting that parole boards should let them out early, or is, in some cases, just completely getting rid of categories of law that I don't think necessarily make our community safer. And I have always attempted to, at least throughout these deliberations on the floor and committees, respect the fact that we have different approaches with respect to how we keep the public safe. And I understand that the other side of this issue does not share, or at least in most circumstances does not appear to share, the concerns we have with what happens when you deprive law-abiding citizens of the means to be able to defend themselves, or in cases like this, where you would make someone a felony multiple times over for owning a magazine, not even the gun. And so I would just remind members of the committee that many of the people that it becomes, I guess, popular to accuse of not caring are people that have either lost somebody to violence or have dedicated at least part of their lives to protecting people from violence, and might also have something to contribute to the conversation, because as I have said repeatedly, there are tens of thousands, in some cases, depending on who you talk to include the CDC, hundreds of thousands of cases each year where a law-abiding citizen uses a firearm in order to prevent themselves from becoming a victim. Now, should we engage in policies which make them a felon, in some cases like this one multiple times over, not for committing an act of violence, not for going into any sort of area or committing the sort of heinous acts that we've heard about tonight? I don't think that is the right target of our policy. I don't think it makes a great deal of sense for a government body to operate as if banning an object automatically makes everyone safer. I wish it were so. I honestly wish it were that easy. But the thing I think we fail to take into consideration sometimes is that the only thing that we can guarantee, because we've talked a lot tonight about hope, but the only thing that we can guarantee when we restrict otherwise law-abiding people from being able to own a semi-automatic rifle, a semi-automatic pistol, is we ensure that the people that plan to comply with the law will be more vulnerable and less able to defend themselves. That's all we guarantee. We hope that the restrictions will also deter in some way somebody who has different intentions from being able to get access to those same firearms. I would argue that I don't think the data supports that. I can appreciate that there's differences of opinion, maybe different perspectives, maybe different ways to analyze that data that leads people to different conclusions. But as I look at places like Chicago or Washington, D.C., or a number of other areas, I don't see people becoming safer because they have increased bans, which seem to predominantly affect innocent people as opposed to the people that commit acts of violence. So I will say respectfully to the people that speak to the patron, we've spoken enough to where I don't doubt what your intention is. I certainly would appreciate it if mine was not doubted either, or chalked up to somehow just being in bed with the gun lobby, as opposed to having served over in a country where I saw firsthand what happened when you disarm a populace and you leave them at the complete mercy of both criminal and terrorist actors. Clerk will close the roll. HB 2240 passed by indefinitely by a vote of 6-4. Thank you, Delegate.